again, thanks very much for being here. It's actually an interesting topic. Obviously a lot of people are actually looking towards the UAE, so I decided to drag a few people from the UAE so that you don't actually take my word for it, but their word for it as well. And obviously UAE has been synonymous with AI implementation and so on, and it's good to see a few guests from the UAE as well in the audience. With me I have two experts, Motaz Ben Saoud, whose experience actually spans across Ola Energy and with me in Sharjah Research Technology and Innovation Park. So whether it's with the government, whether it's with the big entities, he's seen it all, and now he's decided to set up his own entity. Well, it's actually been 2 years now, time flies, and his startup is called Beyond the Analytics, and he works obviously with a lot of large conglomerates back in the UAE. Alongside Motaz, we have Munish, ex-Microsoft. He actually was on the founding team that developed the Microsoft Connect, so a lot of interesting stories there. And now he is the founder and CEO of Gesture Research, and more recently 86B.ai, which is his AI startup. I wouldn't want to go into too much of a monotone. It's unfortunate that we couldn't have Mourad and Muhammad with us, but we have M&M. Unfortunately, it's not M Quad, but I think next time we'll make sure that the rest are here with us. Namaskaram and Swagatam, gentlemen. And let's actually quickly get started. I think to kick things off for the audience, if both of you could give a quick introduction about your backgrounds and what you're currently doing with 86B and BTA. Maybe we can start with Munish and then go to Motaz.
Yeah. So just for introduction, I'm an engineer. I love doing things. So that's my original introduction. I've worked on multiple emerging technology projects, and throughout my life, I have been chasing technology. So that's what defines me. If you show me something which is very fancy and a crazy technology, even if it is future looking, even if there are no use cases for that tech, I'll get fascinated and I'll jump on it. So I'm more of a tech person than a businessman. And then I've worked across the globe. I've worked in India, I've worked in US, in UK, in Hong Kong, in China, at various places, doing technology implementation, doing projects with large enterprises, small enterprises, governments across the globe. And then, as I started learning more and more things, I started helping startups like me. So I, mentor at various startup accelerators, some of them to mention Startup Bootcamp, then Mohammed bin Salman Accelerator Program in Saudi Arabia, then a couple of other programs in Russia, in UK, and other places. And also I'm very closely associated with Startup India to help startups, especially with whatever knowledge I've gained so far working with various companies. And then as far as the title goes, I'm the CEO of a company called Gesture Research. We specialize in emerging technology, right from gesture control. That's why the name Gesture Research came in. That was founded around 13 years back. Then we moved into AR, VR, AI, quantum. So these are the things that maybe which are still emerging. So that's why we are sitting in the emerging tech panel. And then most recently, I founded another company at Sharjah Research Technology Park, which is called 86B. So 86B is an AI-focused company making more human-like AI systems. So that's a small introduction.
Very good. My name is Motaz Ben Saoud. First of all, I would like to say I really have the pleasure of being here in Kerala. It's absolutely beautiful over here. So I was the exact opposite. Okay, I was in business throughout my life. Okay, I worked in corporate, companies and so on from the US, Merrill Lynch, then on Bradstreet. Then I worked in Ola Energy, very big oil company. I was there for about 9 years. And then I moved into the government and so on, and I stayed there for a while. And then I jumped ship, okay, into completely different thing, IT related. However, I was always fascinated with data, okay? And I always knew that I could capitalize on this data and really support the companies I'm gonna, let's say, work with. Okay, so I built a small team around that, and that's what I focused on. We started a company called Beyond the Analytics. Okay, it's in fact now almost 3 years, and it's really growing fast. We were very honored to be awarded, let's say, the fastest growing company in DIFC in Dubai. So this is really an honor for us. Focused on data intelligence and business analytics. Okay, this is essentially what we've been doing. We found a nice corner, and that's where we sit and help companies with many things. We include AI throughout the process, but not everywhere. And we'll be talking about that later.
Thanks, Don. Thanks very much. That's a really good introduction. And I like the fact that you mentioned AI-driven, because AI is used a lot these days, and I think there's a huge hype around it. And I like the fact that you focused on it's AI-driven. It's not an AI application. AI supports it. Now, obviously, to my next question, both of you have worked in very large organizations, and obviously you have carried over that experience. How have you translated that experience into now working as a startup, as an AI-focused startup, AI-driven startup? And now you're on the outside looking in. And now you're working with government, you're working with large organizations, and some of these government large organizations, they like to work with big tech. So name a lot of names of Microsoft, Oracles of the world. So how do you operate? Maybe you can start with Motaz, and then I can get to Munish.
Absolutely. I mean, if I were to summarize it with one word, it's value, right? It's not about AI, it's not about this and that. It's about the value that you're going to provide these companies. So, when I was working with all these corporate entities and governments and so on, I realized that everywhere I was hopping, I realized that companies were not taking advantage of their data. Okay, they are not taking advantage. Sorry, they're not taking advantage of their data. So I realized that there was a big gap. So everywhere I went, I was good with Excel and all these things. I started taking the data and really analyzing it and giving it back to the company and excelling at what I do in my position. So I saw that there was a value there, okay? And I said to myself, you know what? Why don't I start something related to data analytics, build a team around it essentially, because I know now what they're looking for and how they should be seeing their data. So it helped essentially bridge the gap between both IT and business. I know what they want. I know as a manager or a senior person what I should be looking at, and I have the support of the team to essentially build what we need, for them. So it really helped bridge that gap, and which is a big gap that exists in many companies, right? You have companies that know what they want, but the IT doesn't know what they want, and the business guys don't know what the capabilities of the IT team is, and so there's always that gap. So by having that background, I would say we were able to bridge that, okay? And essentially connect the two to support these companies. Now, to answer the second part of your question, I didn't forget about that one. Okay, a lot of these large companies, our companies focus on working only with large, regional, multinational, and government entities, okay? Because we know these are the guys with the big data, these are the guys we're focusing on. We work with a lot of companies like Caterpillar, many of the free zones in UAE, large entities like supermarkets and so on, supermarket chains and so on.
You're not mentioning the main one, or am I not allowed to say it?
Which one? Emirate Health Services? That's another big one. So Emirate Health Services, you're familiar with anybody who's getting residency over there, has to go through it for the whole fitness and everything. We were able to consolidate all the information into one single source. So this is where essentially we focused. But we were able to provide value and at the same time not challenge the big companies out there, okay? Everybody here has ideas, but you don't want to challenge these big companies. I'll give you a small example. You have, companies that have built-in AI where the AI is able to read their data. I'm not going to build something in my platforms that will allow AI to read the data because the other guys are doing it, right? So I'm not going to compete against it. I'm going to complement it. So what we did is, we know the limitations, so we gathered the data from different sources, and we essentially let the other company, the bigger company, be able to read that data. So we facilitate things.
Yeah, so that's an awesome perspective, and in fact, I'm happy that we are also kind of complementing each other. Let me give you a tech perspective, business perspective. I was about to say the same things with Motaz said, and I agree with him 100%. Now on a tech side, what happens is, when you work for a larger organization, and especially, companies which are more platform focused, like I said, companies like Microsoft, Intel, Google, they have two divisions. One is, because they bring new products, so they always are in a mode where they are researching and they are looking at future trends. Okay. Now to get onto those future trends, if you do it in a silo, if you do it alone, you will always be in a dilemma whether that will happen or not. Let's imagine, me as a company, I think about, doing something in quantum computing. Okay. So now quantum computing is fancy, it will be wonderful, but will there be a future, or do I have enough capital to support quantum computers? Right? But imagine I come from IBM, I know that IBM is working on a quantum computer, okay, and they are going to roll it out soon. So I know that part of it is already done, and IBM is going to come in the market with a quantum computer that we can utilize even through a cloud service. So why not start building those use cases? Because ultimately when they come in the market, they have this product and they will provide it as a platform. Now their team will be desperate to sell these products. Now to sell those products, they need enablers, they need companies who will actually build products on top of that underlying platform. And that's where the opportunity lies. The bigger companies will take time to actually adapt to a newer platform. But if you already know that this kind of technologies come out in the market, and you have that insight, and you already have some level of expertise on building products using that underlying stack, you can be a go-to-market partner. And this I tell you from my personal experience. I've been a very close partner with Microsoft for rolling out some of their products, which we in fact brought to India and to UAE even before they were officially launched by Microsoft in these regions. They were launched in US, but since we already have the expertise on doing that, we actually went ahead with the teams, and their sales teams actually bought us as a very specialized partner to deliver these products. Some of the examples were like, we were introduced to VC Vineet here. Vineet is from Aster. At that time, there was a hype for metaverse, but there were not enough products from these companies, and there were not enough partners in the ecosystem who can support that kind of tech. But we had that insight because of we working with those companies and continuing that relationship that helped us to actually innovate products on a faster pace. And being a startup, we can run faster than the bigger companies. Of course, not on their scale, but enough to get started. So that's what it is.
Quite interesting. That actually leads, I have a question directly for you, Munish. Since you've spoken about these technologies, how you actually utilize these technologies, and you've obviously with just research, you were doing augmented reality, XR, all forms of technologies, and now the 86P. It's about emotional AI, as I guess we'll get to know more. But I mean, it's about working with MNCs in government, right? And these are the entities generally who are quite slow when it comes to implementing these tech. But somehow you've cracked it. Can you give us some examples of how you actually overcome these barriers? I'm not sure if you can talk about names of clients, but it would be good to give us some examples of how you overcame these barriers and how you went about implementing some of these technologies.
With permissions? Yeah. So I have a live example here. So Vineet, just to introduce, is the group CIO for Aster Hospitals. So the complete group he heads. And I knew him from one of the introductions that were made by Microsoft, and we were in talks, and he used to see what I'm doing. And then came the boom for metaverse when Mark Zuckerberg said, we will rename Facebook to Meta, okay? And we were already doing it. I've been doing it for quite some time. We built some reputation, we did some work, and that's when I went to Vineet and said, we have something, and I want to show it to you. And he saw it. Now, as a founder, one of the things that I will mention is, we boast about, startup founders being successful and being relentless, doing things and all. So it's not just only startups. It's about the ecosystem, about the people who trust these startups. So that's where, and when you do something with your conviction, you encounter this kind of people. So that's when I went to Vineet. And the obvious question was, you're too small. do you have any, have you done any projects in the past? In the region with any hospitals? No. How big is your team? Very small. You know, we are talking about a big group, right? One of the most renowned healthcare group. How do I give you a project? And that's when, you know, he took me to the highest levels. You know, we got very special approvals from the founders, right? Just because somebody trusted us. And that trust came only when, you know, we had a product which was worth trusting. Okay, so that's how it translated. Now, the first thing is you have to go with full conviction on your product. So that's something I think every founder will do, and then ensure that you make those relationships. You show it to the right people. Right? In Hindi, you know, I can speak a little Hindi, right? So in Hindi, there is a saying that says, "Jungle mein moor nacha kisne dekha." So if a peacock, you understand? Yeah. So if a peacock is dancing inside a jungle, who has seen it? Right? No, he is beautiful, but nobody has seen it. Right? So you have to dance where you are seen, so that people can believe that you can dance so well, and that's when they will go extra mile and take you to the right authorities, and they will have the confidence to decide on you and take you forward. Otherwise, people can take those decisions, and that has been my experience with governments. You know, we have been fortunate to work with many government agencies in UAE, and that was because, you know, somebody saw that potential, and they took it forward.
Do you want to give some examples of this government agencies? I'm going to put you on the spot as well.
Yeah, so one of our very close partner is Microsoft, as I said, and then Microsoft introduced us to the likes of RTA, the Road and Transport Authority, and then we met RTA. They introduced when this, and at first it was again, you know, we are trusting Microsoft, not you, but we like your product. So we trust your product, but for credibility, you are getting Microsoft. Microsoft is trusting us because of what we delivered. And then, you know, that chain followed. Then it went to RTA. Then we worked with some people for Road and Transport Authority. And all these were like senior guys who can actually decide whether we can give this work to a startup or not. So they took that decision, and that's when, you know, people started seeing it. And now we have an experience. Now to the next person, we can actually go and say we did it for them. And the chain followed.
Really, really interesting. Motaz, I have a direct one for you as well. I mean, beyond the analytics, it's all about you know, helping organizations transform complex data into actionable business intelligence. Now, again, you've worked with a lot of these large organizations, government, huge amounts of data. Can you give us some examples of how you put together platforms? And I'm probably going to ask you to name some names. And how you've helped these governments, these MNCs, and actually make derive actionable intelligence from your, for the lack of a better term, dashboards. But I know there are a lot more than that.
Okay. Before I begin there, I'd like to top up what Munish mentioned. We had a very similar journey. We're a very small company. In fact, we were only 2 individuals. Okay. When we started, and already we wanted to shoot high and work with these big entities and so on. And it's obviously very risky for them to start working with you. We're also a Microsoft partner. I don't know how much it helped us, but we're like, let us do this for you. And we made the terms, let's say the payment terms, very favorable for them, just to get in the door. Because we know one name is going to bring the other, and then the second name is going to bring the other, and so on. So we suffered. We suffered very much, is just to get to the right entities. And from there we started building on it. So very similar journey, and I think a lot of the companies need to do that. And one thing also to mention, which is very important, as a startup, you have to play your cards right, okay? There's the sales aspect, there's the marketing aspect, there's the operational aspect, and you have to get a lot of these right, because if you're missing one of these components, you're not gonna do well, okay? Or you might not go to the next level. Okay, and that's why from the beginning I realized that I had to include the right people with me in the company to be able to kind of sell ourselves the right way. You've seen companies with amazing products, but they don't go forward because they're lacking an aspect, maybe whether it's the sales or the operational way to run it, and so on. So this is important, and it's important to say. So to come back to your question, okay, and how we helped companies, okay, we had companies that told us from the beginning, we have over 100 million rows of data. Okay, we have 100 million rows of data, and we don't know what to do with our data. And many of the other companies, okay, they're telling us our data is fragmented. You know, we get that with a lot of free zones. Let's say they tell us, you know, we have this system for this type of data, that system for the other data, and it's fragmented. So it's a challenge, obviously, not only to get this thing to work, but it's also to convince the departments, because you're tapping into departments. And they're like, you know, some of them are protective, some of them don't want the change. However, when you start explaining to them the value, and that's the sales side, right? Listen, this is going to make your job easier. When this data is connected with this, now you have a full story, and this is what the companies want. And then they're like, okay, but how does that benefit me? Now, let's think of it as a free zone, okay? The sales guys will close a deal, okay?
You might want to explain free zone for the context.
Oh, okay. So free zone is essentially entities where you're able to own your company 100%, okay, in the UAE, okay? And you don't need, let's say, a local partner, okay? So it just facilitates this. So because of this departmental, let's say, fragmentation, you know, we told them if we, you know, the sales guys need to confirm when they close a deal, okay, or a company signs up with them, they need to check with finance to see if that company paid or not, for them to actually finish the contract. You see, so there's a lot of gap there. But when we convince all the different departments, it's like, now these guys don't need to reach with you because it's in the same system. The whole story is in the same system, even though it's in different systems, okay, you bring them on under one platform. So it makes their job easier. And when they see the value, then they're like, oh, okay, now we're on board, you see? And that's how you have to win like different levels, I believe, to be able to get to, let's say, essentially the next one.
Motaz, I'm still going to put you on the spot because there's one project that you did which essentially, I'm just thinking how to put it in a politically correct way, wherein the leadership, wherein your information, the way you laid out the information, the leadership started to realize that there was a lot of loopholes in the data.
Yes, and that's another big challenge.
Do you want to go into that before we get to finish?
Unfortunately, it happened that one when you're very familiar with it, you know, but then it started happening a lot more often. You know, a lot of the companies, there's data sitting behind systems, right? You know, you have ERPs that are designed to just capture data, okay? But the data is not coming out to management in an analytical format and so on. So when this data is hidden, there's a lot of things hidden with it. So we had, you know, one major institution where we worked with them, we were able to capture that data and bring it to light where the management were able to see many gaps, okay? Many gaps. Things weren't done, gaps, numbers were missing, and so on and so forth. And it was a big, let's say it created a big, I mean, even a need to do more, you know, to be able to see what else is missing, essentially. Obviously, you have to be political, you have to make sure that, you know, you're rattling feathers here, let's say from us, you know, as a third-party company, but, you know, with the benefit, you know, helps everybody, the whole company, from management all the way down. I touched on it, but not 100%.
Okay, you couldn't mention, but I guess maybe in offline we can talk about entities. Certainly. And it might give some more context to the audience. Certainly. I know I'm running out of time. I probably have a couple of minutes left. So for the audience, what I'd like to ask is a lot of the audience members probably will be looking at the UAE, the wider GCC, as a market. Obviously, the UAE is really promoting AI applications, AI implementations. I'd like to hear from both of you if you could give some insight, some feedback to the audience in terms of what considerations they would need to make if they're looking to make the jump, expand into the UAE for AI-driven solutions, not just AI solutions. And obviously, most importantly, maybe we can end with if it would be okay for the audience to reach out to you personally as well. So maybe I can start with Motaz, maybe we can start with you and then...
Sure. I mean, we know for a fact UAE has a very big push, okay, for when it comes to AI, you know, and all these initiatives, the 2031 and so on. There's a big push and hunger, okay, for AI and AI-driven solutions, okay? And we all know for a fact, you know, there's amazing brains coming out of this region. You know, in India, you see in all these MNCs, you know, from the top level all the way down, there's brilliant minds. So there's a huge need of such talent, okay? So, and we know AI is here to stay. I mean, we see it from our phone to our watch to our fridge to our cars and so on. I mean, everything is incorporating. I mean, we did have certain things like the metaverse where it was coming up and then it kind of died down and so on, okay? But AI is here to stay. So is there a need? Yes. We are in DIFC and we see it around us. There's so much energy around AI and the need of AI that you feel the ground trembling, okay? DIFC is building a new section, AI Campus 2 in DIFC 2, that is much, much larger. Now you see that there is that hunger. So to kind of wrap up the thing, is there a need? Yes. Is there a need for small, more maneuverable companies that can really make things happen? Absolutely and a half. As long as you know how to play your cards right. That's how you can shine, and that's how you can really be in the forefront. Some of you may have heard, you know, Saudi Arabia said, we don't want to work with any of these large companies, we want to work with small companies, okay? Because they know what the value is, and you can provide a lot more for these companies than the larger companies would. So for us, we were ready to collaborate. We always have a need, okay, you know, whether it's from the IoT side, you know, or AI and the IoT side, two different levels of AI, okay? And we did collaborate with many companies. In fact, now we have a few companies that we're collaborating with. I'll be more than happy, you know, to be in touch, okay? More than happy to support. You invented the word karma, and you know, I know that whatever I do is going to come back to me, so I'm more than happy to support with anything. So yes.
Does Munish?
Well, very nicely put, so I don't have much to say, but one of the other aspects of building something in the UAE is, you know, when you go there, you don't just build for UAE, because sometimes people feel UAE is a very small market, you know. A few cities and you're done, right? So that's a plain perspective, but it's not that, you know, UAE is a place where you can actually build products which are global. And when I say, I mean it, because that's the place which can give you a truly metro experience. If you are sitting in Dubai, I can tell you, you go to a mall, you go to any place, you can see people from across the globe. You will see people, you know, I have friends from countries which I've just seen on the globe. You know, I never thought that I'll meet people from these countries. And I meet them, I talk to them and make those relationships. If you build something which is useful and which is global, Dubai is the place to be. You go there, you make it there, and then you start making connects and start selling it to the globe. And when you do that, the government will support you like anything. You know, it's not just, you know, they want to consume your AI, they also want to build something in the UAE, and they want to push forward these products across the globe. So that's also something that you can ride on. You know, there are so many government initiatives which can actually help you if you build products like that, which can not just be utilized within UAE, but built with a global perspective.
Thank you. I think that's very important. You know, the last statement is more about not just building for the UAE, but for building for the wider region as well. Because while it is an expanding market, I think GCC and the Middle East are much larger markets as well. So I think that's our time. Thank you very much, Motaz and Munish, for traveling, I think about 3,000 kilometers to get here. And thank you to your audience. If you have any questions, we are run out of time, but please feel free to reach out to any of us. I think you've got our names up there, so we are reachable on LinkedIn as well, but we should be sticking around for a bit if you have any other direct questions as well. Thank you very much.